I stared at the empty spot next to me in bed, the coolness of the sheets a stark reminder of Tom's absence. Another weekend, another golf tournament. I sighed, running my fingers through my messy brown hair. This wasn't how I'd imagined my life at 38, successful career as an elementary school principal, yes, but a marriage that felt more like a business arrangement? Definitely not. The alarm clock blinked 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday. I groaned, knowing I should get up and start my day, but the weight of discontent kept me pinned to the mattress. I reached for my phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media, happy couples, exotic vacations, lives that seemed so much more exciting than mine. Marina, get a grip, I muttered to myself, finally swinging my legs over the side of the bed. The hardwood floor was cold against my bare feet as I padded to the bathroom. I caught my reflection in the mirror, green eyes dulled by dissatisfaction, the hint of crow's feet at the corners. When had I started looking so? Tired? I splashed water on my face, trying to wash away the melancholy. Downstairs, I brewed a strong pot of coffee, its rich aroma filling the kitchen. As I sipped the bitter liquid, I glanced at the calendar on the fridge. Red X's marked off Tom's golf weekends, more X's than empty squares. My jaw clenched involuntarily. The house felt cavernous and empty. I wandered from room to room, touching knickknacks and straightening pillows that didn't need straightening. In the study, my eyes fell on a framed photo from our honeymoon 10 years ago. We looked so happy, so in love. What had happened to those bright-eyed newlyweds? I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over Tom's number. But what would I say? Hey honey, having fun while I'm stuck here alone again? I set the phone down without calling. He wouldn't understand anyway. He never did. The walls seemed to close in around me. I needed to get out, to breathe. On impulse, I grabbed my keys and purse, heading for the door. I had no destination in mind, just an overwhelming urge to escape. As I backed out of the driveway, my mind raced. Was this all there was to life? Work? An empty house? A husband who was more passionate about his golf swing than he was about me? I felt a scream building in my throat, threatening to burst out. Instead, I turned up the radio, letting the pulsing beat drown out my thoughts. The open road beckoned, promising freedom, even if just for a day. I merged onto the highway, my foot heavy on the accelerator. Miles flew by, suburbs giving way to rolling hills. My shoulders began to relax, the tight knot in my chest loosening slightly. This was what I needed, space to think, to breathe. But as the initial rush faded, reality crept back in. I couldn't run away from my problems. They'd be waiting for me when I returned. Still, the idea of a real getaway tugged at me, a few days away, to clear my head and figure out what I really wanted from life. I pulled into a rest stop, fishing my laptop out of my bag. Within minutes, I had booked a rental car and a string of hotel rooms down the coast. A road trip, just me and the open road. The spontaneity of it all sent a thrill through me. As I merged back onto the highway, heading home to pack, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had no idea what this impromptu journey would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of excitement for the future. Little did I know, this decision would change my life in ways I never could have imagined. The rental car agency buzzed with activity as I approached the counter, my overnight bag slung over my shoulder. The anticipation of my impromptu road trip had kept me awake most of the night, a mix of excitement and guilt churning in my stomach. Next, the bored-looking clerk called out, barely glancing up from his computer. I stepped forward, plastering on my best friendly principal smile. Hi, I have a reservation for Marina Thompson. As he tapped away at the keyboard, I heard a commotion behind me. A woman's voice, tinged with frustration, cut through the ambient noise. What do you mean you don't have any cars left? I made a reservation. I turned, curiosity getting the better of me. The source of the outburst was a striking woman with wavy auburn hair, her green eyes flashing with annoyance. Despite her evident frustration, there was something magnetic about her presence. The clerk at her counter shrugged apologetically. I'm sorry, ma'am, there must have been a glitch in the system. We're completely booked. Without thinking, I found myself speaking up. Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. I'm headed down the coast. Maybe we could share? If you're going the same way, that is. The woman turned, surprise replacing anger on her face. For a moment, our eyes locked and I felt an unexpected jolt of something Connection? Attraction? I quickly pushed the thought aside. Really? She asked, a tentative smile forming. You'd be okay with that? I nodded, surprising myself with my spontaneity. Sure, why not? I'm Marina, by the way. Sarah, she replied, relief evident in her voice. And you're a lifesaver, Marina. As we sorted out the details with the rental agency, I found myself stealing glances at Sarah. She was about my age, maybe a few years younger, with a bohemian flair to her style that I instantly envied. Her floral sundress fluttered as she moved, revealing toned legs and just a hint of cleavage. So, what takes you on this coastal adventure? I asked as we walked to the car, trying to dispel the awkwardness of two strangers about to embark on a road trip together. Sarah's eyes lit up. I'm a floral designer. There's a rare orchid blooming down the coast that I'm dying to see. You? Just needed to get away, I replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious about my lack of concrete plans. As we settled into the car, Sarah's perfume, something light and floral, wafted over me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, inexplicably nervous. Everything okay? Sarah asked, her brow furrowed with concern. I forced a laugh. Yeah, sorry, just realizing the spontaneity of this whole thing. Sarah's laugh was warm and infectious. Sometimes the best adventures are the unplanned ones, right? As we pulled onto the highway, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The sun was shining, the road stretched out before us, and for the first time in ages, I felt truly free. We fell into easy conversation, swapping stories about our lives. Sarah's passion for her work was evident as she described the intricate process of designing wedding bouquets. I found myself captivated by the animation in her face, the way her hands moved expressively as she talked. What about you? She asked eventually. You mentioned you needed to get away. Trouble in paradise? I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to this virtual stranger. But something about Sarah's open, non-judgmental expression made me want to confide in her. My husband, I began, then paused. Well, let's just say his golf clubs see more of him than I do these days. Sarah's hand reached out, briefly squeezing my arm. The touch sent an unexpected tingle through me. I'm sorry, she said softly. That must be lonely. I swallowed hard, suddenly fighting back tears. Yeah, it is. We lapsed into silence for a while, the only sound the hum of tires on asphalt and the faint strains of the radio. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. There was a sense of understanding, of shared experiences unspoken. As the miles flew by, I found myself relaxing more and more in Sarah's company. We sang along badly to cheesy pop songs, debated the merits of various roadside diners, and shared more about our lives. I learned that Sarah was recently divorced, that she had a cat named Pickle, and that she could do a surprisingly good impression of Cher. By the time we pulled into a small coastal town as the sun was setting, I felt like I'd known Sarah for years rather than hours. As we checked into the quaint bed and breakfast, the only place with vacancies in town, I realized with a start that I hadn't thought about Tom or my problems back home for hours. Last room, the innkeeper informed us apologetically. It's a double, though. Sarah and I exchanged glances. That works, I heard myself say, ignoring the little flutter in my stomach. As we settled into our room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had shifted. This trip, which had started as an escape, suddenly felt like the beginning of something new and exciting. I just had no idea how exciting it was about to become. The morning sun streamed through the lace curtains of our shared room, casting intricate shadows across Sarah's sleeping form. I found myself watching her, the gentle rise and fall of her chest, the way her auburn hair splayed across the pillow. A strange warmth bloomed in my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. Enjoying the view? Sarah's sleepy voice startled me. Her eyes, still heavy with sleep, held a glimmer of amusement. I felt heat rush to my cheeks. Sorry, I was just. Sarah stretched languidly, her movement causing the strap of her nightgown to slip off her shoulder. No need to apologize, Marina. It's nice to be appreciated. The air between us suddenly felt charged. I cleared my throat, desperate to change the subject. So, what's the plan for today? As we got ready, sharing the small bathroom and dancing around each other in the confined space, I couldn't shake the feeling of intimacy. It was both thrilling and terrifying. Over breakfast in the quaint B&B dining room, we pored over a map, planning our route. Sarah's finger traced the coastline, and I found myself mesmerized by her hands, strong yet delicate, with nails painted a soft pink. "There's a beautiful stretch of beach about an hour south," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We could stop there, maybe have a picnic?" I nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach at the thought of a romantic beach picnic with Sarah. What was wrong with me? I was married, for heaven's sake. As we hit the road, the conversation flowed easily between us. Sarah told me about her childhood in a small Midwestern town, her dreams of becoming a world-renowned floral designer, and the painful end of her marriage 2 years ago. "He just didn't get me, you know?" Sarah sighed, gazing out at the rolling waves. It was like we were speaking different languages. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, her words hitting too close to home. "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean." Sarah's hand found mine on the gear shift, giving it a gentle squeeze. The touch sent a jolt through me, and I had to force myself to keep my eyes on the road. We were about halfway to our beach destination when a loud bang startled us both. The car lurched, and I struggled to maintain control as I guided it to the shoulder. "Damn it," I muttered, climbing out to inspect the damage. Sure enough, the front tire was completely flat. Sarah joined me, concern etched on her face. "Do you know how to change a tire?" I nodded, already moving to the trunk. "Yeah, but it's been a while." Together, we wrestled with the spare tire and jack. The sun beat down mercilessly, and soon we were both sweating. As I struggled with a particularly stubborn lug nut, Sarah's hand covered mine, adding her strength to mine. The bolt finally gave way, and we stumbled backward, Sarah's body pressed against mine for a brief electric moment. Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to stand still. Sarah's lips parted slightly, and I found myself wondering what they would taste like. The thought both thrilled and terrified me. The spell was broken by a passing car honking at us. We jumped apart, laughing nervously as we finished changing the tire. Back on the road, a new tension simmered between us. Every accidental brush of hands, every shared glance felt loaded with unspoken possibility. We finally arrived at the beach Sarah had mentioned, a secluded cove with pristine sand and turquoise water. As we spread out our picnic blanket, I couldn't help but marvel at the beauty surrounding us, both the landscape and my companion. Sarah uncorked a bottle of wine she'd picked up at the last town, pouring us each a generous glass. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, we toasted to new friendships and unexpected adventures. The wine loosened our tongues, and soon we were sharing our deepest fears and wildest dreams. Sarah confessed her desire to open her own boutique flower shop, while I admitted my growing dissatisfaction with my marriage and career. "Life's too short to be unhappy, Marina," Sarah said softly, her hand finding mine in the sand. "Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." As darkness fell, we reluctantly packed up our things and headed to the small coastal town where we'd booked a room for the night. The only vacancy was a cozy cottage with a single queen-sized bed. "I can take the couch," I offered half-heartedly, even as a part of me hoped Sarah would refuse. She did, pulling me gently towards the bed. "Don't be silly, we're both adults, we can share." As we settled in, our bodies mere inches apart, I felt a mixture of excitement and terror. What was happening between us? And more importantly, was I ready to find out? Sleep eluded me as I lay there, hyper-aware of Sarah's presence beside me. Just as I was about to give up and retreat to the couch, I felt Sarah's hand reach for mine under the covers. She intertwined our fingers, giving a gentle squeeze. In that moment, I knew our journey was about to take a turn I never expected, and I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it. I woke to the gentle sound of waves and Sarah's soft breathing beside me. For a moment, I forgot where I was, who I was. Then reality came crashing back. I was Marina Thompson, married woman, on an impromptu road trip with a virtual stranger who made me feel more alive than I had in years. Sarah stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Morning," she mumbled, a sleepy smile gracing her lips. My heart did a little flip. "Morning," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sleep well?" She stretched, cat-like, her t-shirt riding up to reveal a strip of toned midriff. "Better than I have in ages, actually." "You?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The memory of her hand in mine as we fell asleep sent a shiver through me. We spent the morning exploring the small coastal town, window shopping and sampling local delicacies. Sarah's enthusiasm was infectious, her joy at discovering a tiny, eclectic flower shop palpable. I found myself hanging on her every word as she explained the meaning behind different blooms. "Did you know," she said, holding up a delicate purple flower, "that lavender symbolizes devotion and grace?" Our eyes met over the blossom, and I felt a jolt of electricity. "I didn't," I murmured. "What else?" Sarah's gaze softened. "Well, red roses are for passion, of course, but pink ones? They mean admiration, gentleness, grace. And what about these?" I asked, pointing to a bunch of vibrant orange tulips. A mischievous glint appeared in Sarah's eye. "Those represent desire and understanding between lovers." I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. The air between us felt charged, heavy with unspoken possibilities. As evening approached, Sarah suggested a walk on the beach. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of pink and orange. We strolled along the water's edge, our shoulders brushing occasionally, sending little sparks through my body each time. "It's beautiful," I breathed, watching the sun sink lower on the horizon. "Yes, it is," Sarah replied softly. But when I turned to look at her, she wasn't watching the sunset. She was watching me. My heart began to race. We'd stopped walking, standing face to face as the waves lapped at our feet. Sarah reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Her touch was electric, sending shivers down my spine. "Marina," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the surf. But whatever she was about to say was cut off by the shrill ring of my phone. We jumped apart, the spell broken. With trembling hands, I fished the device from my pocket. Tom's name flashed on the screen. I should take this," I stammered, backing away from Sarah. The look of disappointment on her face was almost unbearable. "Hey, honey," I answered, trying to keep my voice light. "How's the golf tournament?" As Tom droned on about his latest round, I watched Sarah walk further down the beach, her arms wrapped around herself. The distance between us felt suddenly vast and unbridgeable. "Marina? Are you listening?" Tom's voice cut through my thoughts. "Yeah, sorry," I mumbled, just distracted by the sunset. After what felt like an eternity, I ended the call. Sarah had returned, her expression unreadable in the fading light. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We walked back to our cottage in silence, the easy camaraderie of earlier replaced by a tense awkwardness. As we got ready for bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us. The almost kiss on the beach played on repeat in my mind, torturing me with what-ifs. Sarah emerged from the bathroom, her hair damp from the shower, wearing nothing but an oversized t-shirt. My mouth went dry at the sight of her long, bare legs. "Marina," she said softly, perching on the edge of the bed. "We should talk about what happened, or almost happened, on the beach." I sat next to her, my heart pounding. "Sarah, I don't know what to say. I'm married and I'm not." She placed a gentle hand on my knee, effectively silencing me. "It's okay. We don't have to label anything. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something for you." I looked into her eyes, seeing my own confusion and desire reflected back at me. "I feel it too," I whispered. "And it terrifies me." Sarah's hand moved to cup my cheek, her thumb brushing lightly across my lips. "We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with," she murmured. "But life's too short for what-ifs, Marina." As we gazed at each other in the dim light of the bedside lamp, I felt myself teetering on the edge of a precipice. One step forward and everything would change. One step back, and I'd always wonder what might have been. In that moment, with Sarah's warmth beside me and the sound of the waves in the distance, I made my choice. I leaned in. The drive back to Oakland was a blur of stolen glances and lingering touches. Sarah and I hadn't crossed that final line, but the tension between us was palpable, electric. Every brush of her hand against mine as she changed gears sent shivers down my spine, reminding me of our almost kiss on the moonlit beach. As we approached the city limits, reality began to creep back in. My stomach churned with a mixture of excitement and guilt. What was I doing? I was married, for heaven's sake. But the thought of saying goodbye to Sarah made my chest ache in a way I couldn't explain. "So," Sarah said softly as we pulled into the rental car return lot, "I guess this is it." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We sat in silence for a moment, the air heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. Marina, I'd like to see you again, if you want to, that is. My heart raced. I'd like that, I heard myself say, even as my mind screamed about the complications this could bring. We exchanged numbers, the simple act feeling somehow illicit. As we parted ways in the parking lot, Sarah leaned in and brushed her lips against my cheek. Until next time, she whispered, her breath warm against my skin. I watched her walk away, feeling as though a part of me was leaving with her. The drive home was lonely, the house even more so when I arrived. Tom's golf bag by the door reminded me of my reality, of the life I was supposed to be content with. That night, as I lay in bed next to my snoring husband, my mind wandered to Sarah, her laugh, her touch, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about flowers. I fell into a restless sleep, dreams filled with auburn hair and forbidden kisses. The next morning I woke to an empty bed and a note from Tom. Another golf outing. Of course. I sighed, running my hands through my tangled hair. Time to face reality and head back to work. But as I walked into my office at the elementary school, something felt off. The secretary's pinched expression, the hushed whispers that stopped as soon as I entered the staff room. A sense of dread settled in my stomach. Marina, can I see you in my office? The superintendent's voice made me jump. I followed him, my heart pounding. The news hit me like a physical blow. Budget cuts, downsizing. My position as principal was being eliminated. I'm sorry, Marina, the superintendent said, not quite meeting my eyes. You've done excellent work here, but... I nodded numbly, barely hearing his platitudes about references and severance packages. My mind was reeling. What would I do now? How would I tell Tom? In a daze, I cleared out my office, years of memories packed into cardboard boxes. As I drove home, the weight of my new reality settled over me like a heavy blanket. Unemployed, at my age. In this economy. I sat in my driveway for what felt like hours, unable to bring myself to go inside. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and dialed Sarah's number. Marina? Her voice was warm, concerned. Is everything okay? The dam broke. Through tears, I poured out everything, the job loss, my fears for the future, my growing dissatisfaction with my marriage. Sarah listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. Come over, she said softly. You shouldn't be alone right now. I hesitated for a moment, then made my decision. Text me your address, I replied, already starting the car. Sarah's flower shop was tucked away on a quiet side street, a riot of color and fragrance. As I pushed open the door, the little bell tinkling above me, I saw her emerge from the back room. Her face lit up when she saw me, then fell as she took in my tear-stained cheeks. Without a word, she enveloped me in a hug. I melted into her embrace, breathing in the scent of roses and something uniquely Sarah. For the first time since hearing the news, I felt like maybe everything would be okay. We moved to the little apartment above the shop, Sarah brewing tea as I poured out my fears and frustrations. She listened attentively, her hand resting comfortingly on my knee. Marina, she said softly when I'd finished. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but this could be an opportunity, a chance to figure out what you really want from life. I looked up at her, struck by the sincerity in her eyes. And what if what I want is... I trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Sarah's hand moved to cup my cheek, her thumb gently wiping away a stray tear. Then maybe it's time to be brave, she whispered. The air between us crackled with tension. Slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away, Sarah leaned in. This time, there was no interruption, no last-minute phone call. Her lips met mine, soft and tentative at first, then with growing passion. I felt as though I was falling and flying at the same time, every nerve ending on fire. This was nothing like kissing Tom. This was... everything. When we finally parted, both breathless, I knew my life had irrevocably changed. There was no going back now. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with potential heartbreak and difficult decisions. But as I looked into Sarah's eyes, seeing my own desire and hope reflected back at me, I knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, I was ready to face it. With her. The days following my job loss blurred together in a haze of anxiety and secret rendezvous with Sarah. I told Tom I was networking, looking for new opportunities. In reality, I was spending every spare moment at Sarah's flower shop, losing myself in her world of petals and perfume. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Oakland skyline, Sarah called me. "Can you come by the shop? I have a surprise for you." My heart raced as I made some excuse to Tom about meeting an old colleague. The drive to Sarah's shop felt both interminable and all too short. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. And yet, the shop was dark when I arrived, a closed sign hanging in the window. I knocked softly and the door opened to reveal Sarah, backlit by dozens of candles. The scent of roses enveloped me as I stepped inside. "Sarah, what is all this?" I breathed, taking in the transformed space. Rose petals carpeted the floor, and soft music played in the background. She smiled, a mix of nervousness and determination in her eyes. "I wanted to do something special for you, to show you how I feel." My breath caught in my throat as she took my hand, leading me deeper into the shop. We stopped in front of a stunning arrangement of red and pink roses. "Do you remember what these mean?" Sarah asked softly, her fingers intertwining with mine. I nodded, my voice barely above a whisper. "Passion, admiration, grace." "Marina," Sarah said, turning to face me fully. "I know this is complicated, I know you're married, and I would never ask you to do anything you're not ready for. But I can't deny my feelings for you any longer." She cupped my face in her hands, her touch sending shivers down my spine. "You make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years, and I think I make you feel the same way." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the truth of her words. When I opened them again, Sarah was so close I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "Tell me to stop," she whispered, her lips a breath away from mine. "Tell me this isn't what you want, and I'll step away right now." For a moment, I saw my life flash before my eyes, the safe, predictable path with Tom, the unknown, thrilling journey with Sarah. In that instant, I made my choice. I closed the distance between us, capturing Sarah's lips with my own. The kiss was everything our first had been, and more passionate, desperate, years of pent-up longing poured into a single moment. I fumbled with the zipper of her dress, my usual confidence replaced by a nervous excitement I hadn't felt since my teenage years. As the fabric pooled at her feet, I took in the sight of her, all soft curves and smooth skin. Sarah led me to a makeshift bed of blankets and pillows she'd arranged among the flowers. As we lay down together, surrounded by the intoxicating scent of roses, I felt as though I was floating in a dream. What followed was a dance of exploration and discovery. Sarah's touch was electric, igniting sensations I'd never experienced before. We moved together in perfect synchronicity, as if our bodies had been made for each other. In the aftermath, we lay tangled together, our skin glowing in the candlelight. Sarah traced lazy patterns on my arm, her expression a mix of contentment and wonder. "I never knew it could be like this," I whispered, still slightly breathless. Sarah smiled, pressing a soft kiss to my shoulder. Neither did I. As we drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the evidence of our passion, I knew there was no going back. I had crossed a line, and my life would never be the same. The vibration of my phone jolted me awake hours later. Tom's name flashed on the screen, along with several missed calls. Reality came crashing back, harsh and unforgiving in the cold light of dawn. I looked at Sarah, still peacefully asleep beside me, and felt a mixture of elation and terror. What had I done? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? As I slipped out of our floral haven, careful not to wake Sarah, I knew I was standing at a crossroads. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with potential heartbreak and difficult decisions. But one thing was certain. There was no going back to the person I was before that night among the roses. The weeks following that night in Sarah's flower shop passed in a blur of stolen moments and mounting guilt. I'd become an expert at crafting excuses, at living a double life. To Tom, I was the dutiful wife, focused on job hunting and networking. But every chance I got, I was with Sarah, losing myself in her embrace. We met in hidden corners of Oakland quiet cafes, secluded parks, and most often, the sanctuary of her flower shop after hours. Each time I saw her, my heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. What we're doing was wrong, I knew that. But it felt so incredibly right. One afternoon, as I lay tangled in Sarah's arms among a bed of rose petals, She traced lazy patterns on my bare skin. "What are we doing, Marina?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with both contentment and uncertainty. I sighed, burying my face in her neck. "I don't know," I admitted. "All I know is that I can't seem to stay away from you." Sarah tilted my chin up, her green eyes searching mine. "And Tom?" The mention of my husband's name sent a jolt of guilt through me. He doesn't suspect anything. He's been so wrapped up in his golf tournaments lately, he barely notices when I'm gone." A shadow passed over Sarah's face. "I hate being your secret," she whispered. "But I hate the thought of not being with you even more." I kissed her then, trying to pour all my conflicted emotions into the gesture. Sarah responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in my hair as she pulled me closer. As our kisses grew more heated, I lost myself in the sensations, the softness of Sarah's skin, the intoxicating scent of flowers that always clung to her, the way she made me feel alive in ways I'd never experienced before. Later, as we hurriedly dressed, Sarah's phone chimed with a message. Her eyes widened as she read it. "Shit," she muttered. "My supplier's coming by in 10 minutes with a rare orchid shipment. I completely forgot." Panic seized me. "I should go," I said, frantically smoothing my rumpled clothes. Sarah caught my hand, pulling me in for one last lingering kiss. "Come by tonight?" she murmured against my lips. "I want to show you these new orchids. They're stunning in the moonlight." I nodded, already anticipating our next rendezvous. As I slipped out the back door of the shop, I felt the familiar mix of exhilaration and shame that had become my constant companion. That evening, I told Tom I was meeting an old colleague for dinner to discuss job prospects. The lie came easily now, each one building on the last until I could barely remember the truth myself. I arrived at Sarah's shop just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the quiet street. As I reached for the door handle, a familiar voice froze me in my tracks. "Marina, what are you doing here?" I turned slowly, my heart pounding, to see Tom standing on the sidewalk, a look of confusion on his face. I was just, I stammered, my mind racing for an explanation. Before I could formulate a response, the shop door opened behind me. Sarah stood there, her eyes widening as she took in the scene before her. "Oh," she said softly, realization dawning on her face. "You must be Tom." Time seemed to stand still as the three of us stood there, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. Tom's gaze darted between Sarah and me, confusion slowly giving way to suspicion. "Marina," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could I possibly explain this? How could I make him understand something I barely understood myself? Sarah, ever my savior, stepped forward. "I'm Sarah," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "I'm a friend of Marina's. We met during her road trip." Tom's eyes narrowed. "A friend," he repeated, his tone skeptical. "And you just happened to run into each other here?" I found my voice at last, grasping at the flimsiest of excuses. "Sarah's a florist," I said quickly. I was thinking of applying for a job here, to tide us over until I find something in education again." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but it was better than the truth. Or so I thought. Tom took a step closer, his eyes never leaving my face. "Is that so?" he said softly. "Then why do you look so guilty, Marina?" In that moment, I saw my carefully constructed double life crumbling around me. The weight of my deception, the strain of living two separate existences, came crashing down all at once. I looked at Sarah, saw the mix of fear and determination in her eyes. I looked at Tom, saw the hurt and betrayal dawning on his face. And I knew, with a certainty that both terrified and liberated me, that it was time to face the truth. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, placing myself between the two people who had come to represent such different parts of my life. "Tom," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "we need to talk." As the words left my lips, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Whatever happened next, whatever consequences I would face, at least I would no longer be living a lie. The moment stretched out, fraught with tension and unspoken accusations. In the fading light of day, standing on that quiet Oakland street, I prepared to confess everything, and to face whatever came after. The tension in Tom's office was palpable as I sat across from him, my hands twisting nervously in my lap. After the confrontation outside Sarah's flower shop, we'd agreed to talk things through at home, but home no longer felt like the safe haven it once was. How long? Tom's voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the undercurrent of anger and hurt. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. Since the road trip, I admitted. But Tom, it's not what you think, he cut me off with a bitter laugh. Not what I think? My wife's been sneaking around with another woman, lying to me for weeks, and it's not what I think? His words stung, but I couldn't deny their truth. I never meant for this to happen, I said softly. I was just lost, unhappy. And Sarah, she made you happy? Tom finished, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Gave you what I couldn't? I flinched at his tone but forced myself to meet his gaze. Yes, I whispered. She did. The silence that followed was deafening. Tom stared at me, a myriad of emotions flickering across his face, hurt, anger, confusion, and finally a resigned sort of understanding. I suppose I'm partly to blame, he said at last, running a hand through his hair. I haven't been the most attentive husband lately. His admission caught me off guard. Tom, no, this isn't your fault. I made my choices. He nodded slowly. We both did, Marina. We both let our marriage become this. As we talked, really talked, for the first time in years, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. We spoke of our drifting apart, of unmet needs and unspoken resentments. It was painful, raw, but necessary. So where do we go from here? Tom asked finally, his voice weary. I took a deep breath, knowing my next words would change everything. I don't know if I can stay in this marriage, Tom. It's not fair to either of us. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. I think I've known that for a while now. We've been going through the motions, haven't we? Tears pricked at my eyes as I reached across the desk, taking his hand in mine. I'm sorry, Tom, for everything. He squeezed my hand gently. I know. I am too. As I left Tom's office, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The life I'd known was ending, but perhaps something new, something true, could begin. I found myself driving to Sarah's shop almost on autopilot. She was waiting for me, worry etched on her beautiful face. Marina, she breathed as I walked in. Are you okay? What happened? I collapsed into her arms, letting out a sob I hadn't realized I'd been holding back. Sarah held me close, stroking my hair as I poured out everything that had transpired with Tom. When I'd finished, she cupped my face in her hands, her green eyes searching mine. What does this mean for us? She asked softly. I took a shaky breath. I don't know, I admitted. All I know is that I want to find out, if you're willing to take that journey with me. Sarah's response was to kiss me, soft and sweet and full of promise. As we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I'm all in, Marina. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. We spent that night tangled in each other's arms, whispering hopes and fears for the future. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead would be challenging: divorce proceedings, judgment from friends and family, the uncertainty of building a new life. It was all daunting. But as I looked at Sarah, her face serene in sleep, I knew I'd made the right choice. I thought back to that fateful day at the car rental agency, how a chance encounter had set me on this unexpected path. Life had a funny way of leading you where you needed to go, even if you didn't realize it at the time. As Sarah stirred beside me, her eyes fluttering open with a sleepy smile, I felt my heart swell with love and possibility. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. This wasn't an ending, I realized. It was a beginning, messy and complicated and beautiful in its imperfection. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where the journey would take us. Sarah's hand found mine, intertwining our fingers. Good morning, she murmured, pressing a soft kiss to my shoulder. I smiled, feeling truly at peace. Good morning, I replied. And it was the start of something new, something real, the start of the rest of my life. As we lay there, bathed in the soft morning light, I knew that while the path ahead might be uncertain, I was exactly where I was meant to be. With Sarah by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held, one day, one moment, one kiss at a time.